Hello. All right. This should be the last of the videos I'm making this fine Saturday morning, and this is in response to Looper Radical, and because it's going to be short, I don't know much about what he's asking. I just know a little bit. I'm going to use it also to make some personal announcements. So let's start with the personal announcements. Recently, I have made the decision, crossed that line, and decided I'm going to do some competitions again in forms, weapons, and fighting in traditional martial arts. We have the Show Me State Games here in Missouri, probably I think next month, June or July. And I'm going to compete in my age division. But the Show Me State Games recently, due to the pandemic and a lot of schools closing and things like that, participation is fairly low, and so they often consolidate age divisions, which is cool. And I also want to do what's called the Columbia Cup, which is slated for September if it's still going to be on. I've noticed a lot of schools closing, traditional martial arts and others. And part of it's due to pandemic, part of it's due to the economy, part of it's due to the popularity of MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. People are kind of more into Muay Thai, kickboxing, things like that. But it is what it is. It's also a good time for a senior guy like me to compete because less people in your division, less competitors total, your chances of placing go up. So why not? I've had some good luck and done some good work and gotten support medically from the VA and from myself and other people, so my health is making improvements, and this is a good time to test myself. I'm in the gym 3 times a week most weeks, although I took Wednesday off because I was overtrained. It happens. I'm usually doing martial arts 3 times a week. And my last serious student, Crystal, who I've been training for over a decade, like her husband Sam, I told her, you guys are both black sashes. You guys have both gone, I think, as far as they can with me training here in my apartment without a heavy bag, without other students. I've given them all that I can in that situation. Honestly, they haven't learned a quarter of what I could teach them. But it's amazing that they were able to do that. I have no wooden dummy. Some things in martial arts, you need like at least 2 other students so you can practice mass attacks and sparring drills, and sparring is very limited here. Crystal's smaller, slighter than me, and the last 2 days she was here, I said, choose what you want to do. And she chose to spar me both days. And the last day, we went 3 rounds. I went pretty heavy. I told her, I want you to, we have the gloves on. I want to see you punching me in the face. Because she can defend like there's no tomorrow. She can body shot. She can kick. She doesn't like punching people in the face. And she got over it. She gave me some good punches. Under pressure. I wasn't going full force with her. But I did takedowns. And I said, lastly, because you've had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training now, let's do a 2-minute round of grappling. I outweigh her 3 times her weight, right? She resisted the takedown very well. I finally got her down and mounted, did ground and pound, again, controlled. And I had to talk her through, how to do an upa against someone this big. While I was hitting her, I'm like, okay, pull me in. I don't, she's got the hand across my throat. I'm like, that's not going to get you anywhere. Pull me in. All right, now hook that leg. I can't. I'm like, I'm going to keep hitting you. And she got on top. And then she escaped my guard and did side control. And then the clock ran out. And I was like, you did extremely well. I said, you've been my student this long, you and your husband. You're both doing other martial arts. You're working with your kids. You're running. Your husband's got that chiropractic place. You're doing massage at it. You're doing taxes. You're doing this other self-improvement thing. I realize You have a lot to do, and there's a bunch of stuff that I want to focus on for myself, including reigniting my competitive career, doing some things for myself. And I said, I'm going to take a sabbatical. It could be months, it could be years. Who knows? If the situation could change, I could move out of town. But I feel very comfortable. If you had a nice certificate made up, bumping you up to second degree black belt, or having some kind of instructor certificate made up, I would gladly sign it. And honestly, I would actually sign a second and third for them, because about 3 years, a little bit over 3 years into their training, I gave them black sash. I felt they'd earned it, and we're not really worried about rank since. So if they wanted to make a second and a third, I would sign them both for them, and I'll let them know that. And I said, hey, do what you want with this art. Don't abuse it. If you want to start teaching it, or a variation of it, pull me into it. It only makes sense. Then immediately, one of my Masonic brothers, Christian, he's a heavy-set guy. He's really big. And he started doing some of the Wing Chun with me and stuff. So he's kind of filling that slot. But I'm focusing on me, my training, my development. My collaborator, Master Jose Gonzalez in New Jersey, he had trained Jeff Mack, who trained me in high school, was one of the instructors, and who I was employed as an instructor for in the 90s after I got out of the Marine Corps. Jose is retiring from his day job, focusing on himself, and has reformed the Nippon Kudo Karate Federation, and has some collaborations we've been working on. And he's promoted me to 7th degree black belt and recognized me as the headmaster of the Goju Daotei Karate style, as I am the only active instructor. Quite a few all of them have stopped or died. Right? And part of what I'm doing with this competition is I need to validate that. I need to go out there and test myself amongst my peers, amongst my age group, amongst my rank, and go out there and validate that. Now, let's move on to Looper Radical's question. What do I know about Bak Mei? I have seen it. I have seen it on video and in person. Short style, similar to Southern Praying Mantis. They're obviously related to Gocho Kyun, related to Goju Ryu, in that the first form is a 3-step form with simple punches. Obviously, the Fukinese martial arts have many elements in common, even Wing Chun. Bak Mei, done properly, is incredibly fast. It is a fast style. It is a shorthand style, and therefore, you're not going to get a lot of big, powerful blows, per se. It's all about precision, using the phoenix knuckle, the fingertips, the palms. I don't know if there is a straight fist punch in that style. I heard that in the early days, prior to the modernization of the arts in the 50s and 60s, there was a lot of bag work in Southern Dragon, in Bak Mei, in Southern Mantis, heavy bags and different types of bags, different targets, and so you knew exactly what the blows were for. And there are 2-man sets. I think some of that is less widely practiced in any Bak Mei school that's not taught by a Chinese. Generally, when a martial art crosses over to the mainstream, it caters more towards kids, and if it's adults, they're more towards tournament competition. And you can't really spar with any of this, right? The same way you can with jabs and crosses and high kicks. It's a little bit harder to regulate. You can't really do it with the pads on. And so, sometimes you have sparring with whatever techniques from the style you can use. And then you have sparring drills like sticky hands and push hands. And it's also a style that never really went that mainstream, right? And if you guys have been following Kung Fu, Kung Fu in general has pulled out of the mainstream and continues to pull out of the mainstream and is going back more towards Chinese communities and interested people. Yi's Hung-Ga Federation is still global. Wushu is still, done in China and Asia, widely, I presume. But a style like Bak Mei has always been, insular, esoteric. So, surveying the hand techniques and the few kicks, which are all low, of Bak Mei, just like the other Fukienese arts, it's designed to be practical for what they thought were practical, right? Boxing is a standard of practicality in punching in the Western world, and maybe now parts of Asia. But the people that invented Bak Mei were like, that is not practical. Punching people in the hard bones of their face with my ungloved hands and, relying on pure concussion and strength and power to protect myself is a dumb idea. All right? For them, they want to close in. If they close in, they want to end this fight. They want to hit something vital, something squishy, something breakable. They want to hit you in your groin, your knee, and they want to get to their weapons, which are usually knives and daggers and axes and things like that. And yes, Fukienese styles are favored from many gangsters that come from Fujian, Hong Kong, Canton region. Up close fighting, a lot of gang wars were probably fought that way. There's a lot of legendarium around Bak Mei or Bak Mei. But then, legends and narratives aren't necessarily verified history. So take it all with a grain of salt. If you are lucky enough to be geographically near a legit Bak Mei school that teaches how to work on equipment, the two-man forms, the fighting, hitting bags and pads, and has some kind of sparring format or formats, anything from pushing hands to closing in and out, man, learn it, because that's just an opportunity most people won't even have in China. And I believe in China things are more secretive, more exclusive, okay? Because just because you're Chinese might not mean you're welcome. You might be the wrong kind of Chinese. You might belong to a different clan or something. If you get a chance to learn from a proper teacher who's willing to teach all that to a non-Chinese, go for it. I don't think you will regret it, right? Unless you have to join like a gang to do it, right? Tell you a little bit of a story to close this. I was training with Xian Gao in Flushing, Queens, and there was a student there, a slim, tall Chinese fella. He had long hair that he tied up in a ponytail. He was, fit, handsome guy. Like I could see this guy being a movie star, right? And he was studying to be a medical doctor. He was in med school. And so he liked Xian Gao's training because it was very physical and very beautiful, and he learned a lot of amazing, weapons. And he happened to be incredibly graceful and fast. But he didn't necessarily have to fight and get punched in the face and hurt his hands. So it was well suited to him. And one day we were doing a demo. And I asked Master Gao, can I demonstrate some of my other Kung Fu? He goes, oh, no problem. You show. So I started doing Gocho Kyun, 5 ancestor fist. Right? Which has some similarities to Bak Mei. And I even participated in the 12-step, 24-step Yang-style Tai Chi form that Master Gao taught. And I remember I had 2 comments. when from a young lady, she watched me do Tai Chi. She goes, "You remind me so much of my uncle. When he was a big guy like you, but he was so light on his feet." I said, "Thank you, thank you." And she didn't come up to me. She was saying that to Master Gao. Goes, "Oh, Bai Li." He used to call me Bai Li. Bai Li, come. She talk a good you. She talks good about. She's praising you. And I said, "Well, thank you." I'd had that moment. I think that was a separate moment. And then at this demo, when I did the 5 ancestor fist, this young guy came up to me. Goes, my uncle did kung fu like that. He was gangster. I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, I remember the gangsters do this type of kung fu like you do." I'm like, all right, I'll call this gangster fist from now on. So I think Bak Mei is one of those gangster fists, all right? Well-blooded in the streets, in the back alleys of Hong Kong and Fukien and Canton. Not even necessarily purely a self-defense weapon, but an assault weapon. And I really think in order to make it work, you're going to have to do iron finger and iron palm and grip training, all right? Because you're taking pointed structures and you're aiming for vulnerable structures, but you're likely to hit a forehead or a cheekbone or something like that. And you won't last long if you don't condition those surfaces. And from what I hear, just like in 5 ancestor fists, you should do a lot of iron body training, because if you're going to get in close, you might get hit. There's not a lot of side to side protecting your head. You have to be able to use those hands. And it is a high guard. So that's what it is. All right, Looper Radical, hope you enjoyed that. And thank you for asking the question. I know it took a hell of a time for me to get to you.